Welcome to Strange Mysterious World, Season 4, Episode 3. Today I'm thrilled to welcome Peter Fae, mystic, journalist, and founder of Into the Mythica. Hello, Peter. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing today?
Good, man. So, yeah, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today and to hear all about Into the Mythica. So tell us, what is Into the Mythica?
So, Into the Mythica is the result of a project that I went on, of a quest that I went on to live the real life heroic journey and discover the real magical world. And it was all based on the idea of did you ever read Jules Verne's Julie or know the concept of journey to the center of the earth?
Yes, I've heard of that, but I've never really gone into it. But
It's a classic. It's a classic. Jules Verne was a classic, author back in the day, and the whole idea was that this explorer had discovered a world within the world, right? And the movie funk is about these four explorers that come after him, who are now following his clues to go down this volcano, down this subterranean, like down, 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 down into the earth, where they encounter the layers of the earth. They encounter like giant mushrooms. This is the book was written in the 50s, right? So it's like giant mushrooms, giant crystals, dinosaurs. Then they get to like an underground ocean, and then they get to like the remains of Atlantis, and it's like a whole thing, right? And the idea is that, so for me, the takeaway on that was there is another layer to the world. Like I was like, I'm an explorer. I want to find this world. But for me, what I realized was that it wasn't just the gross physical world, like, here's the ground, and now we're going to dig underneath the ground, no more to cave. And now we're going down into for me, it was actually about the world of consciousness is a landscape in and of itself. And I sensed intuitively that it was based on something that was vibrational and real and related to our manifestations and also our journey through life in general. And so in 2002, I set out on what ended up being a 20-year quest to discover the world that exists when we're in a certain vibrational substance. And this was based on the Hermetic and mystical axiom, as above, so below, as within, so without. The idea that your outer circumstances would mirror your inner vibrational state. And so my idea was that if that's true, then my outer circumstances, the people, the places, the events that I experience, the version of the earth that I experience, right? Out of all of the potential worlds, where I arrived on my timeline would be related to my own vibrational state. So this is the idea when people talk about healing, they're saying, oh, I have this pattern or this wound in my subconscious,
yeah.
or I've got this karmic ancestral thing in my unconscious.
Mm.
And now I want to clear this thing because on the basis of this idea, when you clear the thing inside, it should change on the outside. Like you should like
Yes,
experience new decisions.
yes, because that's what I was going to ask you. Because you were saying that the outside vibration is affecting your inside vibration, but I wanted to say, but what about your inside vibration affecting the outside? Have you changed your vibration so that it reflects outward instead of, the other way around? But sorry, you actually
So it's the same thing.
you're saying it right now.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I'm saying that. So what I noticed was that I kept running into people who were of a certain vibration. Like I would run into beings who were people who were like priestesses and magicians and modern day Jedi and
Oh wow.
really powerful artists and creators and shamans and mystics. And I was like, if the law of correspondence, and that's what that is, that's officially called the law of correspondence, right? As above, so below, as within, so without, is it's the idea that the outer world corresponds to your inner world,
Okay.
right? So this
Yeah.
is the idea that if you have scarcity issues inside, it's going to correspond to scarcity issues on the outside. If
Hmm.
you are made of a certain kind of like archetype or energy, the
Yeah.
correspondence will be that you will encounter that outside. So we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, sure. And also, like people, they just use different languages. It's like how you manifest something is like what you believe inside yourself. Like that whole manifestation thing. They say if you believe you're poor, you're going to be poor. But you saying it as like a vibrational thing, which is like it's like
Right.
a
I'm
different
saying that
language, but
the
it's the same thing.
yeah, it's all different branding. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things I realized in my own search, through the Mythica was that there's a lot of different brandings. I really thought of like the best way to really communicate this to people, right? And this was actually why I designed Into the Mythica as like a full-on multimedia kind of comic book storytelling to communicate the actual real life adventure that I went on. And so, but so when we talk about if you have this belief, then it's going to manifest in your outside world. What I'm talking about is what is the structure of a belief?
Okay.
Because that's the vibrational structure of the thing. Like when you're talking about it as a belief, it's like saying like you live in this house and therefore this house is going to have this kind of that's a belief, right? But I'm saying a house is made of brick and mortar or clay and hempcrete and la la la, and it's got foundations and it's built into the earth. So I realized that the structure of things, like the truth of the elements, is the foundation for our stories. You see what
Okay.
I'm saying? So
Okay.
I was like, so
Yes. All
what
right.
makes up the belief of scarcity? What structurally?
Yes.
Like
Okay. Okay.
everything's
Got you.
made of vibration, right? It's
Yes.
like,
Yes.
okay, what are those? You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
When I was a kid, I was I realized very early on that your inner vibrational state and where your consciousness is at actually is an entire reality on its own, and that it actually arrives in real life circumstances, real life physical circumstances that are related to its own vibration. So this was before people were talking about like change your reality, law of attraction, limiting beliefs, or they were getting into like entheogens like ayahuasca, psilocybin, and all the, or altered states of being, with lots of yoga and meditation. I was naturally moving from one state of being to another in a very like wild and uncontrolled way. It was like a mutant power,
Wow.
right? And William was just asking me, he's like, well, wasn't that frightening for you? And I'm like, yeah, but it was also like exhilarating. It depended on what state of being I was in. Because one moment I'd be like in like this really like I'm feeling the elementals, I'm feeling the deva, the nature spirits, right? That actually make up the substance of reality. And the next moment I'd be like lost and confused and super overwhelmed. And then in another moment, I would be like having communications with, the spirits of the land, or I would having like I would perceive other people as like these as the gods, essentially. Like I was like experiencing my perceptions of people and circumstances on a very deep level, right? And later I would realize that this was like a super realized yogic thing. But it wasn't like I was in a yoga tradition. I was like born with it. So it was like I was moving between different states of being. And I was saying to William that the journey into the Mythica was my journey to discover the basis for the landscape of the movement between different realities. So when someone says your inner limiting beliefs or whatever, your karmas, your patterns, your subconscious, you did ancestral trauma, la 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 la, is creating your perspective from the inside out, and then you take it a step further into our outer vibrational reality is a manifestation of our inner vibrational reality, as above so below, as within so without, the classic law of correspondence. I was looking at what are the many landscapes that one gets into, like what is the landscape of the shamanic world, what is the land, and how does it relate to the actual planet. So I set out like a character in a book, because I was saying to William that I ended up so okay. So when I was 13 years old, right, I was walking through because of my consciousness shifted around, right? So I was walking through the streets of New York City and a lightning bolt hit and
Jeez, wow.
everything froze, like froze. And I was like this. And I had always had a very deep spiritual, mystical relationship with the rain and the lightning, right? And in that moment, it was like I could see the people through the raindrops, like the raindrops were like in slow motion, right? And each of the people's faces were different dependent on the raindrop that you saw things from.
Oh, okay.
And I realized that point of view itself, anyone's point of view, is what they're seeing through the raindrop,
Yeah.
right? And that everyone has their own way of looking at something based on the composition of the water.
Yeah, or your experience.
Right. So some months later, and I had an experience where it was another storm, and I had an encounter with the goddesses, the muses of story, song, and dance, which in the Greek perspective, this would be story would be Calliope, song would be Euterpe, these are the muses, right? Dance would be Terpsichore. And I did a thing where I could feel the energies of them and I channeled them into my body as like an intuitive means of grounding out my experience because I was drifting all over the place. And it was like this intuitive, like, okay, I have to find some way to anchor myself. I'm going to anchor myself through the arts. And then this became a whole thing where I started to look at my life as a mystic story, where I was the central character of that story. So years went by, and I ended up, I loved books and fables about like travel to another world, or it's like so on and so forth, the journey to the center of the earth, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, any book or movie, Star Wars, you know what I'm saying, Earthsea, I mean anything. And I got really into the idea of, okay, I'm drifting between different states of being. One moment I'm in a state of being where I'm like, it's like you're on mushrooms, or it's like you're having a high meditation experience. The next moment I'm in a state of being where I'm like confused and like, super agitated or something like that. And I'm realizing that these different states of being are entire worlds unto themselves, entire worlds. So I started getting into the idea that as a character in a story, as a devotee of story, which I'm using story as an anchor. Story, song and dance are also part of story, really, right? And I'm moving from one reality to another, but it's not just in my mind. I'm realizing that as my mind is shifting, my body is also shifting. So I'm in like this point, like this GPS point on Earth for real, right?
So you're going
But
like through different dimensions then,
in different dimensions.
Okay.
Okay, but now hold on. So hold
So
on a second. So now, all right. So let me get this straight quickly. So you, as a child, you were
yeah,
experiencing these kind of temporal shifts and physical shifts in the reality. Okay, and kind of this almost brings me to a thing that maybe we are living in the Matrix or we are living in a holographic universe. But anyway, that's a whole different story. Okay, so now with the vibrations that you were saying, you had it was a constant flux. It was fluxing up and fluxing down. There was a how
shift
so
between dimensions.
as a high vibration when your body was in a high vibration. I know you said it felt like you were on mushrooms or your mind was kind of shifting. How did the body feel? Was it like was there some sort of energy
Like a
that's
marker.
yeah? Did you feel that your body
Vibration like
felt
a
different to what it normally feels?
Yeah, no, totally.
Okay,
Totally.
so
There was
how does one actually achieve that? So I've always had this thing, people say in order to see the other side of the curtain, or you need to increase your vibration. You need to be able to, because we're currently on a very low frequency. So everything low frequency is very hard, very hard.
that's
It's
tough
very
on Earth,
physical.
man.
So how do you get to the point where you can actually start seeing something beyond the veil or beyond there? How do you increase your vibration? I've always wondered because we've spoken to so many people, Peter, with regards to these type of things, and I mean, you've heard. And how do you get to that? How do you actually get? Let's say increase your vibration, but how? How does one
Okay.
actually increase your vibration? What foods can you eat?
So,
What's the secret?
well, okay, so if you look at I got you. I got you, right? So, okay, so if we're talking about consciousness itself, right? It's like what I was really into is and I'm going to do a little explanation, but I am going to address what you're saying. Just, to say. So, when we're talking about, so what I was into as an explorer was, it wasn't so much for me at first. You're talking about methods.
Hmm.
What method can I use to transform my consciousness? But what I was on about, even though again, I'm going to talk about it, right? But what I was on about, what is the map?
Yeah, because I
Meaning,
think you're
like,
going to get to it, Peter. So just, yeah, carry. I think if you carry on with the story, you eventually get to the method, because that's what your
I
whole
will.
website is about in that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The method, the website, what I'm doing with the website is, so I documented my story for 20 years. Yeah, Lee, I got you. I'm just gonna finish on
No,
this
it's
deal.
fine.
So,
It's fine.
like, yeah, no, we're sorted. And so it's just, I got you. And so I'm just happy to talk to you guys finally, right? I was like, yes, And so the so what I was talking about, I'll give you an example, right? So the map. See, so many people are into the method, but when you understand the map, it gives context to the method. Like, let's say you're an adventurer, you're on your quest, you're in your current incarnation, right? You're traveling along your timeline. You were at work, you're doing the thing, you're now here, we're in the studio, and so that's really happening, right? But there's many dimensions to that. And so when we're talking about vibration, we want to be more aware of the dimensions that are going on as we're traveling through space, right? Through space, time, and the dimensions. And what I got into was, what is the coordinate system of space, time, and dimension that creates our reality and the reality that we move through? So to give you an example, right? In South Africa, I have a friend of mine in South Africa named Zoe, right? And Zoe, I met at like an online mystery school for magicians, right? For like spellcasters, hermetic spellcasters, that was run by Carolyn Elliott. Carolyn Elliott was the writer of a book called Existential Kink, which is all about clearing it's a method, clearing your subconscious patterns by like getting off, getting excited or getting like kind of juicy or like, like, I love this at like whatever shitty pattern you're dealing with right now in your thing. And her whole thing is like, if you could love it and add this like erotic force to it, you can reprogram it because you're not resisting it.
Is
And
that is that the Seven Ray Mystery School?
I think no, no, but
Okay.
also to understand like all of those things, those are shapes. So whether it's the Seven Ray Mystery School or all of these things. So, okay. So Lee, when I first got into it with William, I was saying that in my attempts to understand the map of our many, many worlds, which is what are the coordinates of time, space, and dimension, and how do those get us into a world? So what I was saying there, and I'll get to the seventh ray thing. What I was saying there is that Zoe, who's a magician, I met in the online mystery school that Carolyn Elliott was putting on. But what I'm saying is how, out of all the potential realities that can exist, did I end up meeting Carolyn Elliott, going to her thing, and then meeting Zoe, who lives in South Africa? Okay, it's just to reference it to where you guys are, right?
Yes,
And I'm
yes.
saying that there is a causality, there's a physics to why we meet each other in circumstances. Like there's like a physical thing to it. That's what I was on about. I was like, how do we land the worlds within the world? So let me give an example, right? So I documented my story for 20 years to explore the strange and mysterious worlds, right? To explore, shout out, right?
Nice
To,
one.
I got you. And so to explore,
That was a good one.
to discover, because I was just like, okay, there are moments when I'm like, so Lee, before you got on, I was telling William that like one of the things I was noticing was that I kept meeting people who were like magicians, shamans, priestesses, modern day Jedi, and I was just like, why am I encountering these types of vibrations in the field? And this was all based on the law of correspondence, as above, so below, as within, so without. Right? This is the idea that if you're made of a scarcity vibration inside, you're going to encounter scarcity circumstances outside. If you have limiting beliefs, right? If you're made of a certain kind of like an abundance of vibration inside, you're going to encounter it outside. But logically, that would mean that if you're encountering mystics and sages and Jedi and the real version of that is real people, right? Outside, it means it's a vibration inside. So it was all based on the law of correspondence, the correspondence between the inner and the outer world. And this is my search for identity. It was my search for like, okay, what is it about my inner state? Because I'm flipping between states, right? That is causing me to encounter these people, as well as causing me to move through different states of being really deeply. And there was a moment in New York City when, I mean, it's so fascinating because the podcast thing is new to me. I actually just got back from the Quest like 3 years ago, and I've been building out my whole site and doing the thing. So talking to people, it's like I've come back from this journey. And I'm just, so it's just interesting to witness how things come up in conversation. And I'm like watching it happening, But that's part of the structure too, because it's like when you guys speak or you're just sitting there, you are made of vibrations structurally. Before you even get to people's interpretations of their visions of God, structure. We're made of the elements. The elements are like, they have a certain vibrational tone to them. We can learn, like an artist, just to touch on method for a second. So I haven't just wandered off from the question.
Yeah, it's good.
We can learn as an artist. So I was going to school. I did a couple sessions at School of Visual Arts, New York City. I was very into the art scene there. I was a dancer and so forth. And I was into what is the visceral, somatic sensation of certain vibrations. And how can I discern that? And more to the point, how can I lock that down in a way that I can understand why I'm meeting such and such a vibration at this moment in time? So when we were talking about how time, space, and dimension, that's like a coordinate point on a map. I'd be like, what is the territory of that map? So let's say I'm at a party in New York, right? And let's say I'm in a state of being where I'm feeling the vibrations of the people. Now, this is like an artistic thing. It's like, what is that color? Like, what is that tone? I have a piano behind me, right? It's just like, what is that tone? Right? Like this. These are all different, right? And so vibrationally, the fundamental method is you have to really learn to discern between the different colors of consciousness.
And like this synesthesia.
Yeah. Oh, I was born with synesthesia. Totally. Okay. I was born with a form of rarefied spatial synesthesia. I'm so glad you said that. I didn't even think to say that. Right. So everything was occurring. Yes. But this is what I get into. I'm like, why did you say that in that moment? What higher intelligence was moving through you to facilitate the conversation? That's my whole trip.
Yeah, I also think like that sometimes. Yeah, exactly.
Well, because what I realized in the Mythica was that there is no separation. Like I actually came to the deep yogic realization. I actually knew that when I was born with, but then it really clarified for me because I documented my timeline. I got very, very, very clear. So I went on a journey and documented my timeline in order to make sense of the spatial synesthesia I was experiencing, because I was experiencing reality in a very spatial way, meaning this object is in space. This object has a geometric relationship to this other object in space. That object could be a person. That object could be an idea. Like an idea has a very visceral, somatic sensation to me, to like my mutant power of synesthesia, right? So it's like someone's thoughts, not in like full on Charles Xavier, Jean Grey kind of way, but the shapes of things, right? Like people, they feel a certain way, and when your sensory apparatus gets refined enough, you start to distinguish between the colors of those feelings. For me, the feeling of they were like shapes in space, having a geometric relationship with each other. So if I were to say, how is it that I arrived at this party in New York City at this time with this color, that, and not just colors, I'm talking about like fields, energies, right? With this energy, and this energy in the space, and how are they relating with each other in space? Remember, I was a dancer. So everything was about the movement of like your body through space and other bodies in space, and then the dimensions of that. Because it's not just like, is someone close to you or are they further away, and the relationship all that has to gravity. It's also like, what's their vibe? What's my vibe? How am I interpreting this? Right? The method at the core comes down to discernment. You got to be able to discern this from that. Without that, you're incoherent.
Okay, so let me ask you a question then, Peter.
Yeah. How was that so far?
I think I've kind of got your idea.
Thought.
So I was at prayer today, and outside the room, I could hear guys yelling, screaming and shouting at each other. Now, there was a part of me that wanted to get up and go and tell the oaks to F off, move away, because we need some peace time. But then something said to me, leave it. It's just relax, because I could feel myself getting angry. So maybe it's a discernment of recognizing, okay, I'm feeling angry now. I'm getting that. I need to step away. I need to step away from that and move on to a different direction. I don't know if that's kind of what you're trying to say, that maybe there was like because I can't see colors. I mean, we're not synesthesiacs, but maybe it's you discerning. You can discern the moment. You can discern that's the action and the moment, and you can make a choice at that time to say, all right, do I move forward, or like unconsciously people will go forward and they will go to the worst. They will actually, they will confront.
Right,
or do you have the concentration to say, hold on, no, don't worry about it. Just choose this direction. So you're almost discerning between the different paths. I don't know.
You should have gone and asked them to come pray with you. We should have prayed for them. We should have prayed for them.
Brothers,
Yeah.
I sense that you have rage in your heart. Perhaps we should sit together in fucking silence and just give peace to ourselves in the form of other people who have to listen to you. So sacred. So, but it's kind of like, see, this is the thing, man. Everyone actually perceives the vibrations to one degree or another. To one degree or another. If you don't have good food and you don't meditate and the too much media, you're not enough outside. The mind. So we can't see clearly. It's like trying to look through water that's rippling all the time. This is where we talk about stillness. And so you don't have to be in like the category of a synesthete, so on and so forth. Everyone's feeling it ultimately. There's just different ways of seeing. There's different depths of seeing, but fundamentally there's different ways of seeing, and it's just like, but we're all perceiving the vibrations in a certain way, and you're hearing them getting on about it, and it's an aggro vibe. You know what I'm saying? It's not like the, okay, man, I'm coming to peace kind of a vibe. But then you had a divination. You had like an intuition, like just let it go. This is a big thing, because this is, if we're talking about like the methods on things, it's like, if you start with people, it actually messes up your clarity. Why? Think of the water. Now you can't see.
So do you reckon there's something that's making us all aggravated all the time, and like the social media just so we can never actually see the truth?
Something, my perspective on that is much, 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 much larger than most people's cultural constructs, but I will go into it.
Okay, let's go.
So what do you guys, okay, so remember I said that everything was spatial for me, right?
Mm.
Okay. So what I'm really on about is how are things happening in space, right? So like for example, my journey into the Mythica, which is what I've documented for 20 years. I just got back from the quest to prove that your inner vibration and your outer vibration are connected, right? And also to map where my inner vibration was taking me, right? And so I ended up like living a very mythopoetic life, like real life Harry Potter. Went to school for magic, summoned a wolf, real wolf. That was my companion for 10 years, like a familiar, like Harry Potter's owl. Super noble creature named North, right? Have hung out with like magicians and priestesses and people who are into the Avalon thing or the Norse thing or the galactic thing. I've traveled all over the world documenting the story, meeting various characters, and it's literally been like I was like, wow, I keep ending up in these locations that are like right out of a movie set. Like the mountains or the forests or you're by the fire and it was the answer to my devotion to story, going back to my devotion to story, right? Where I decided to set out on the quest, document the vibrational landscape and see what was the relationship between my inner vibration and the outer vibration. And so I ended up, I'm going to get to the space thing, right? But I ended up living in a reality where there was like a lot of people from like the more Norse kind of energy, a lot of Viking people, a lot of like circus and Celtic energies, people into the Avalon thing, into the Magdalene thing, into the Heros Gamas, those kind of magics thing. And I documented the whole thing with photos and built that out into a 20-year timeline that I'm still in the process of publishing because it's taken years to organize the 20 years of the quest. I just got back in 2022. But, I'm opening the Mythica and I'm going to talk about what I'm saying. And part of this too was me developing with the AI and stuff to visualize what I was saying so as to give people the gift while I was still building out the back end and all that archives. And so what I'm saying there is that going back to the synesthesia thing, I am moving along my timeline. I'm in New York City. I'm in Oregon. I'm in Kauai. I'm in Canada. I'm in Bali. I'm in Menlo Park. I'm on this podcast now, right? This is all happening in space, right? On my timeline. And it's happening in a certain dimension. And what I noticed in documenting my timeline for 20 years was that there was a consistent mythopoetic, like it was like I was like living a movie where the people were like, oh my God, you're like right out of Middle Earth. These are real people, like living real lives. This isn't like made up. You know what I'm saying? Like this, like these are real grounded people. But I'm saying that we're real grounded people. We are the magic. We are the gods. We are the goddesses. We just don't remember. Why? I can't see. Now, you see what I'm getting at,
Mm.
right? There's a deeper layer to our experience. I call that layer the Mythica. The Mythica is the mythopoetic layer of our personal story. It is directly related to our inner vibrational state and where we arrive in our outer experience, right? It's always going on. This is really getting into the reality that we all contain all the aspects because we're all part of the divine, right? We're all part of the single field. So we actually have all the qualities of consciousness inside of ourselves to different degrees, right? We're not just this one thing. We're being that thing for a limited time, right? And so being mortal, like we're only here for just so long in this character, right? So going back to what I was saying to William at the beginning, I was like, everything is structural. It's made of vibrations. I was feeling those vibrations in the space with the synesthesia, and I was overwhelmed by that synesthesia and kept moving from one space to another, not just physical space, interdimensional space. So when I was talking to at the beginning of the call, I was saying like, no, I would go from like the mushroom space to the shadow, super angry, super frustrated space to like a really like enlightened space to like a super emotional space. And I was realizing that all of those were positions in space. You see what I'm getting at with the time, space, and dimension thing? They were
Like the tree of
coordinates.
life.
Oh, totally the tree of life. This is exact. And so the whole thing with the Mythica is about what I call the grove of life, which is where I actually mapped out, going back to the Jules Verne reference, right? The Journey to the Center of the Earth. I actually acted as that explorer, used my photos to document my journey within and without through that mythopoetic landscape of real life Harry Potter, real life like Percy Jackson, right? Where I was realizing that all of this was happening, going back to the synesthesia, right? In space, inner space and outer space. I don't mean outside the atmosphere. I mean like outside the self. You know, it's like you guys are in your studio, that's in outer space. It's outside the self. But inside, you're in your own world. You're made of your own elements, your own star sign, your own astrology, your own doshas, Ayurveda, yoga, Ayurveda science, right?
You're
Your
your own
own,
hero.
what's that?
You're the own hero. You're your own hero. Your own.
You
You're
are
the
your
story
own
that
hero.
everything revolves around. Yeah.
You are absolutely that story. But here's the thing, and this is actually the challenge, going back to the, is there some kind of malevolent or force that's like messing everybody up by keeping them distracted vibe, right? You are your own story as a character inside a world of stories, because the illusion of separation is what creates the entire problem. We are actually one unified consciousness. We are a part of the planet. The planet is a part of the universe. This has been my observation. When we move around on our story, because I witnessed my story, and also understand that by documenting my own timeline, I would notice when certain repetitive characters would show up in synchronicity. This was the thing I was trying to see. What is the vibrational? Why do I keep meeting this person? Why do I keep meeting this person who's a priestess of Avalon? Why, without me setting it up or trying to strategize or trying to like get into the thing, am I running into I mean, like in Bali, like someone that I met, you know, in
Lee?
Oregon.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, just making sure
Sorry.
that, you know, I'd meet them somewhere else. This was all a proof of the vibrational structure of things, right? So what I realized was that not only am I the center of my story, Lee, right, as you are the center of your story, but that my center, there everyone was. And if you saw it from above, you would see that we're all characters in a world, a shared world of stories. And it's actually like spiritual truth is simple. It's not obvious, right? So if I were to say everything's made of vibration, and if you learn to discern the vibrations, then you will have a somatic body sense of when, oh, if I get into a row with these guys, it's gonna throw me off my peace trip. But if I keep this here and I'm listening to the guidance, it'll keep me in this feeling state, which will give me more access because I'm not muddying the water. You see what I'm getting at, right? But that's a discernment. You gotta be on that. So as an artist, I was like, I gotta be on that because I'm going from one set of colors to another. I was drowning in myself in the space. So I was like, how do I anchor that? And that's the first method. You got to feel the difference through the vibrations. Is this good for me? Is this not good for me? Is this burning my life force? Is it not burning my life force? And the whole thing is that because we're so incoherent as a culture, as individuals, it's very difficult to hear the voice of the mother. It's there, but we can't hear it. Simple, not all. Lots of everything's made of vibrations. Every single thing's made of vibrations. All those CDs that you've got there, Lee, so on and so forth, the wooden sculpture, the idea of why you put the spider there and doing the thing, all of that is made of vibrations. You got to be able to discern those vibrations like an artist, right? And it's there. You know what I'm saying? We sit there, people like they do an entheogen, they do some mushrooms, they do a little smoke a joint, right? It's there. The mind shifts. So I got really into what is the shift between different states of being and how does that relate to me living a mythopoetic life as I move through space? Like, why am I being led? Because I never set the photos up. That was part of the documentary. I'm like an explorer of the strange and mysterious world, right? like the dude from, oh, I love you, you know, like the dude,
Plugged again.
you know, so like the dude from Journey to the Center of the Earth. But then I comboed Journey to the Center of the Earth with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Because I was like, I'm going to document that. So I never set the photos up. I was like a tourist. So I'm like, oh, wow, I'm in this place that it feels like the energy of like Norse vibrations, or this feels like the energy of like Christian mysticism, or this feels like the energy of yogic things. And then there would be like the people would arrive who were made of those impressions. Maybe I was in a temple, but it was like all of these worlds were the expression of that vibrational world. So this is me looking at like the colors and the shapes and the feeling of the vibration is now manifesting in my outer world. I'm documenting it and I'm realizing, wow, there is a landscape of vibration that exists. It's simultaneous with what we experience on the surface of the world. And I realized that when we understand this, when we see that there is a deeper layer to our world that's already going on, it becomes a quality of divination. And then, of course, it's if I change this feeling inside of myself related to, say, scarcity or confusion or incoherence, and I start generating this feeling, is it going to cause me to encounter outer circumstances that are related to that? And this is a journey through worlds. Worlds.
Yeah.
And it's simple, it's not obvious. It's happening like on your timeline. Here, check this out, right? I'm going to use my handy dandy iPhone cable just to show you something. I don't know if we're going to do this on audio, but you can tell the audience that I'm holding up like a string, right? So
You're holding up a string.
Yeah, I'm holding up a string. It's my super like thing, right? So can you see that? Can you see like holding up a string, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and this is a timeline. Like this was, say, my timeline. Now, let's say the timeline is, this is the way I'm really feeling is the best way to explain it. Let's say my timeline is like the string of a guitar, right? And let's say that each fret on the guitar represents like a scene in my story. Like this would be this fret here. But this fret here near the end of the string, well, not near the end of the string. We're all going to live for a while. But like at this point in the string, why? So at this point in the string, right, I'm meeting you guys. But at this point in the string, and for the listeners, I'm going all the way back to the beginning. I left New York City in 2002 to go on the quest. At this point in the string, even earlier in time and space, you see how I'm getting to it? Time, space, and dimension. I was in this point in time space where I was just like, I'm a kid, I'm in the rain, I'm having the lightning bolt, I'm having this whole experience of space and how our perspective is like the raindrop, going back to what I was saying, right? Is like the raindrop falling through space from heaven to earth to be recycled back into a new body, moving through time. It's very grounded, right? And our perspective is like, each person's perspective is like looking through their own raindrop.
Yeah.
Right? It's like their own glasses.
Totally, yeah.
Totally. Right? And so when I saw that, I was like, whoa. But then all of those raindrops have a geometry to them. And I made a lot of graphics like that I'm gradually releasing in the Mythica to really show this, right? But that there's a geometry to like, you guys are in South Africa right now. I'm here in Palo Alto right now. Right? It's 6:30 for you, it's 9:30 for me. Right now. But we're into vibrational space. Like, because I can feel it, like as we've been getting more into synergy with each other in the talk, right? More of the topic is becoming clear. Can you feel it? Feel it? Like we're all having more comprehension of each other. Like it feels more clear.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm talking about? So Lee,
Yeah,
what are the methods? And I'm like, witness it. It's happening. The witnessing is the method. The witnessing is yes, you can do breath work. Yes, you can focus on love. Yes, you can focus on gratitude. But you got to know what those feel like. You got to have a vocabulary before you can start trying to build sentences. You know, so getting back all the way back to what you were saying, William. So So I have a certain kind of like realized perspective, right? Like I already saw that everything was like one thing, and that I was learning to discern between those one things when I was born. Not, it wasn't clear, it was like overwhelm. It was like Jean Grey or like a mutant with like a telepathic overwhelm, right? But the documentation with the photography helped me ground that so I could understand the topography of that world, which is made of those vibrations structurally, right? And that we're traveling through in time, space, and dimension makes up our story along our timeline. You see what I'm saying? So it's just like if going back to the string, if like this is the thread of my timeline, right? You guys, you know the idea of the fates, the Norns,
The
you know
three
what I'm talking
fates.
about?
Mm.
The three fates.
Mm.
Yep. Like it's your life is a thread spun by the fates,
Spiderweb.
spun out by one, measured by the second one, cut by the third one. That's the end of that life. Even if you want to talk about like, single life, I'm of course way into the multiple lifetime thing as a part of the planet. That I get into that. But it's like in general, the thread of your life, every heroic adventurer is on the thread of their life. You, me, anybody listening to this podcast, that is your thread of life. That thread is one thread in the tapestry of lives. The tree of life, going back to the Kabbalah, to the Sephiroth, from like Kether to Malkuth, that, right, is just one tree in the forest. So for me, as we move in terms of consciousness, and William, I have not abandoned this. I'm going to get back to the thing with like what's going on, right? As we move in consciousness from the illusion of separation, it's just my tree. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm going through my journey. You are a character inside of a world full of a bunch of other characters that you're meeting inside of a much larger world where all of these threads are all happening simultaneously. The illusion of separation is the misperception. It's the only sin, actually. Anything else is nonsense. It's branding, right? There's only one sin. It's imagining that you're separate from like each other in the divine. Everything else grows from that. And it just means error, right? It's being off point. Yeah, right? It's just off point.
But this is exactly what the Bible, like with everything that's said in the Bible, the main message is like just love thy neighbor, treat thy neighbor like you would treat yourself, and all of the rest is commentary. But that's exactly what you're saying there, is because we're all one, we're not separate. So
yeah, and that's the thing. And so all of the problems that we have, getting back to the incoherence, right? Getting back to what you said, do I feel that there's a pervasive energy, a malign intent? You know what I'm saying? Like so the government's doing this, the Anunnaki are doing this, something like that, right?
Like the Gnostic kind of idea that we in how life is like, because and we're being kept here because the God is not perfect. You know, the whole
so
Gnostic
funny. I
idea.
want to say something. I almost don't want to say it, but it's so I'm gonna say it. So like
Say it.
in terms of self-identity, right? I have always, because I've recognized that I'm kind of like, I got like a celestial consciousness. I realized over time that I had like a certain yogic realized viewpoint, and I was being born into this incarnation with that, right? And I kind of fluctuate between like identity is just a shape, and we want to change identity in order to shift worlds, right? With this is the identity that I'm currently playing. I'm playing Peter Fae, and he's like this kind of a mystical character. And I met this minister once, and he was like, I was there with like this Kundalini yogini, right? She's like full on, with it all the time, and he's like trying to convince, he's trying basically to convert us because that's their thing. They're super into marketing, right? And he just does this thing. It's like, well, what do you think about heaven and hell? And I was just like, we're going to go to hell. I was like, listen, we're in a world full of incoherence, repetitive patterns, shadow work, crazy. I'm like, what are you talking about? We're in hell.
Yeah, that's what I
Where am I
think
gonna
about. You
go?
think about all the time.
Yeah, where am I gonna go? What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. It can only go. It can only go up from here. You know.
It can only go up from here. But I loved it because it was the end of the conversation. There was no like, do this to get here. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I own a condo in hell.
I'm the president of my own hell. I am creator
Yeah,
of my
that's
own
the I
hell.
live in
I'm the
my own
devil of
hell.
my own
So
hell.
does everyone else. And so, but this became this real look at, because what I realized was that, okay, so from my perspective, Mythica, I want to show you guys my perspective. I was born with the synesthete thing, went on a journey to prove the laws of vibration. I realized that the media as it exists is not really based in truth. It's based in glamours, like it's based in like, ooh, no, but it's not really like what is. And I'm way more of a Viking than that. And so it's just like, for me, the Mythica is about, like in a Viking way, the Mythica is actually about understanding what the Rainbow Bridge and the World Tree actually are. So by me documenting my story along that topography through space, right, I'm realizing that my timeline, the thread, and anyone's timeline is a part of the planet. That the thread of our life could equally be seen as like a woven